welcome to another episode of the Cutting Edge Figure Skating Podcast. My name is Kim Dunaway. This episode, I'll be recapping the ice dance event at the 2024 Grand Prix de France. Boy, chaos hits ice dance again for the second time in as many as 3 Grand Prix. So I cannot remember a time that we've had quite this much craziness in ice dance, and I'm totally here for it. So let's get into it. The winners here, shockingly so, were Lopareva and Bruzeau of France, hometown team coming home with the gold medal. I thought they were most likely to get bronze coming into this week, just based upon how well Reed and Embrew-Levicius did last season. And of course, Grenade and Fabry coming in as the heavy favorites. But I definitely thought that they had a chance for silver. So the fact that they came out, got gold, and a ticket to the Grand Prix final could not have gone better for these two at all. And they certainly have 2 really good programs this season that are really helping to propel them as well. So this could be a really good coming out party for them and a great opportunity for them at Grand Prix final next month. Their rhythm dance, I just really love the way that they kind of transform into whatever the assignment is. They were 3 points higher in the technical score here than Reed and Embrew-Levicius were, and they were only a point behind Grenade and Fabry, who were not quite as sharp in the rhythm dance, so that was fantastic for them. The free dance, I've gushed about this quite a bit last week because I really do enjoy this rhythm dance. I love the starting pose with her looking like she's kind of kicking him. I think it just kind of sets the tone before the music even begins. Love how they use the accents in the music. I felt like the ending wasn't as smooth here from the character step through the ending pose as it was last week in Canada, but it was still a very strong performance for them. Getting the win here and capitalizing off of mistakes from our second place team here, which was Grenade and Fabry of Italy. So for the second Grand Prix season in a row, they find themselves on the silver medal position. Surprisingly, this one, though, is completely their own doing. Last year at NHK, Beer and Gibson just came out there and beat them. That certainly would not have been the case without a big mistake in the free skate for them. Let's talk about the rhythm dance first. Their costumes are just not my favorite. Honestly, I feel like this rhythm dance is probably my least favorite rhythm dance of this Olympic quad from them. I just don't feel like it stands out as much. I can remember better their Latin one from 2 years ago, as well as their, super campy one from last season. This one is just so incredibly forgettable for me. And I feel like both Fear and Gibson and LeJoie and Laga's rhythm dance are a lot more interesting. And if there is ever a year where they're vulnerable, I feel like it's definitely this season. They were not thrilled with the 82 that they got in the rhythm dance either. They're usually around 86, 87 in their rhythm dance, especially in competitions where they're not up against Gillis and Poirier or Chalk and Bates. But even so, they were 5 points ahead of the second place team and well within a place to win if they just stayed on their feet, which they were not able to do. So in the free dance, I know a lot of people do not love this robot program. I know a lot of people, this is their first time seeing the robot program, whereas for me, this is my third time seeing it. So I actually really like it. I think it shows an incredible amount of range from this team, whereas last year we got more of the, lovely contemporary kind of style program. And 2 years before that, we got something a little bit more edgier from them. We've seen them do Michael Jackson. Like they've got a lot of tremendous range. And I don't think this is a program that a lot of teams can pull off, or any team maybe can pull off beside these two. So I am not a fan of them changing the program or going back to a different program, because I've seen a lot of people say they don't think that this program works. Because if this is the only time that you've seen it and it wasn't at its best, I can certainly understand where that sentiment comes from. But I do think that this is really a fun program. Is this a program that's going to win them a world title? I don't think so, but I don't think they need to change it. But what went wrong? So I just felt like they were kind of flirting with disaster the whole time. Like the straight line lift that they do at the beginning, it's such a stunning moment when done well. They couldn't really get it all the way up, and it was very shaky, even though they got pretty decent scores on there. Thought he really struggled on their last set of twizzles, even though, again, they got kind of a decent score. And then at the end of their circular step, he stumbled and then fell on the twizzle part, which is what ends the step sequence, and it just kind of fell a little flat. In general, just the whole routine just wasn't as sharp. And then with the fall, I was definitely expecting them to finish below Lopareva and Brazeau in the free skate, but I thought they would still probably win because they did have a 5-point lead. I mean, I didn't expect them to get 106 points. That was awful. That was really awful. They were fifth overall. And I think they said after that this was like the worst program of their whole career. They were very, very down. Barbara, who's probably their coach, was just over it. She was like, okay, let's go. She was like, on to the next thing. She wasn't having it. She wasn't having the wallowing and or anything like that. It was just kind of like, okay, well, we got out of here with the silver. We're still on track to make Grand Prix final. Like, it's fine. They were clearly not happy after. And I've also heard a lot of people complain about the costumes. Now, if there's a fair complaint about the program, I think that is a fair observation because they are very, very similar in height, which is challenging for dance teams a lot of times. And so when they're in the exact same costume and she's got her hair kind of slicked back, I can see where people feel like there's not quite enough differentiation between them and they would like her to be in something different. I mean, really outside of their skates, which she's in white boots and he's in black boots, they look very similar, right? They're kind of the same height. So I can understand where that criticism comes from. But I think pushing the panic button on the program, I think is a bit unfair. But as like I said, skating is subjective. You're free to dislike it. I totally understand. Third place here was definitely a surprise, and that was Brody and Somerville of the U.S. A pleasant surprise. I felt like they should have certainly been in line for their best finish at a Grand Prix, which prior to this Grand Prix was sixth. And they definitely looked like they should finish fourth here. And how close could they get to the third place team, and could they push them to get on the podium? And I felt like in both programs, they scored a little lower than you felt like they probably would have need to have gotten to get on the podium. But it just worked out for them here. In the rhythm dance, they had a really good performance, improved from last week. But I know they would like to get closer to that 74, 75 mark. And so they weren't quite there at 72. And then in the free dance, of course, they had the fall last week on the Twizzles that dropped them all the way to ninth last week. And so they were really pretty down. They didn't have time to wallow in self-pity. They had to get right back onto a flight and head here to France. And they said before they skated the free dance that Tanith White, who's one of their coaches at META, sent them a text that said, just skate for each other out there today. And they said that that's what they did. And for me, this performance was so similar to how they skated this program at NHK last year, where it felt like they were just kind of totally in an arena all by themselves, not really skating to anybody else but themselves, and sort of just kind of created a really nice moment. Their twizzles were much better here. And frankly, it's a real strength for them when they are on. They skate very close together, and they're usually so incredibly in sync. Like Caroline and Michael are very much the same way. Like when their twizzles are really on, they're really, really impressive. Still just got a level 3 for him. I think it's on that second set, just not quite as steady. But everything else I thought was really pretty strong for them. And to get a medal here is huge in their case for wanting to get back on that world team. And like I said last week, people were writing them off because they had a rough free skate and anointing Zingas and Kolesnik because they were the highest finishing American team there. But at the end of the day, results matter. And they, for the most part, Ian and Emily have been pretty consistent. Now, obviously, they had the rough go at Worlds, and obviously, they had the rough go last week, but they are 100% in that conversation for that third spot. We're going to see what Caroline and Michael look like next week. And I hope all of these American teams really skate their best at US Nationals. But they're the first team to get on the podium, even more so than we haven't seen that from Christine and Anthony yet either. Only Green and Parsons have managed to get on the podium. So like I said, it's huge for them. And yes, their score isn't as high as what Zingis and Kolesnik had last week. That's how it goes sometimes to the Grand Prix. It's definitely how it went in the pairs event here, right? Sometimes you just kind of get lucky with the matchups. And so for them, it really worked out. Fourth place team here was Reed and Amber Levicius of Lithuania. Got some good news this week as far as Allison's citizenship. It looked like it was just not going to happen at all. The rumor was, as what I heard last year, that the Lithuanian government was wanting for her to give up her American citizenship in order to get Lithuanian citizenship, and that is not something that she was willing to do. But it does look like they have recommended citizenship for her, and so hopefully that happens, and so she's able to get to the Olympics with Salyus, and they are able to represent Lithuania. Now, Allison has been to the Olympics before. She was actually at the 2010 Olympics competing for Georgia. So it wouldn't be her first trip to the Olympics, but she's definitely been trying to get back, and it was such a bummer for them not to be able to go 4 years ago. So I definitely really hope that that works out, and it looks like it is. And their rhythm dance, they are skating to Rod Stewart. I do think it's different enough from last year's Guns N' Roses, even though I feel like the costume is still kind of in the same vibe. The rotational lift they do is not the most exciting. I feel like it's hard to get a general vibe from what this dance is. There's like elements of disco, but it didn't quite come together for me. Definitely they were disappointing in their scores. I think they were hoping, and based upon the success that they had last year, to get a silver here and be on their way to potentially getting a Grand Prix final. And they ended up third after the rhythm dance. They were about 3 points behind as well, so they had some ground to make up in the free dance. So they have this whole theme where he is a master of puppets and she is a puppet, and she's supposed to come to life and turn him into a puppet. And what I feel like with themes a lot of times like this, that sometimes it takes some time for it to sort of mesh and sort of come together. Like the dance that comes to mind is Maddie and Evan's Alien and Astronaut free dance from the Olympic season 3 years ago. That dance for me did not come together until about US Nationals. In the Grand Prix, like it was fine, but it just needed some time. And I feel like with this program is probably going to be the same. Now, I like it. For me, they have this really cool stationary lift to start. I love the arm movements that they do in the twizzles. I think it works well with the music and with the theme. And then they use those same arm movements again right after in the curve lift, rotational lift combo that they do. You can tell in this character step that like she's trying to take over, which the whole purpose of the character step is to like add to the story. And a lot of times character steps, it's just like I fuss about it all the time. I hope they get rid of it, honestly, in the next Olympic quad. But when it's used here, it really enhances the program because it makes sense. If I'm nitpicking at all, like the last Hydroblade movement that they did was a little bit shaky, but I just think she does a great job with her face, like getting into the character. So I really enjoyed it. They were definitely disappointed with their scores and definitely disappointed to not only not move up, but actually to move down and off of the podium altogether. So getting a fourth place finish here makes it virtually impossible in ice dance for them to get to the Grand Prix final. Certainly puts them still in the hunt for medal at Europeans, but with the success that Evgenia and Jeffrey are having this season, And you know what Gwenard and Fabry are bringing to the table. You know what Fear and Gibson are bringing to the table. It's going to make it even more difficult. And we haven't seen Demogé and Le Mercier yet either. And they had a really great season last year, a real team on the rise. So they're going to have to definitely make some improvements for the next time that we see them in the Grand Prix. In fifth place was the Miraz Czechs of the Czech Republic. And they had the biggest movement sort of in the ordinals. They were in seventh place after the rhythm dance, which there were a lot of teams that were really bunched very closely together. For them in the rhythm dance, the issue was with their pattern step. They had a base level on their pattern step, which affected them in their scores. I always kind of have an issue with like how much GOE should you get for a level 1 pattern, a base level pattern? Like should you cap the GOE? Should you make it kind of like an edge call is in singles? Because like they ended up with a +2 on their pattern step, which, it's not a +5, but I'm just like, if you have the potential to get a 4 and you just get a base level, should it be capped at like a +1 or a 0? I always have these questions when we have people get these really high, and not that this is like a super high GOE, but this is the lowest level of a pattern step that you could get. I wonder that when I see people get, a circular step of a 1 or a 2, but then they'll give them like a +3 or 4 GOE, and I'm like, really, should that be a thing? I know that. Anyway, just throwing that out there. It's always kind of a thing that bugs me a little bit. All right, in the free dance. This I feel like is the best that they have looked all season. They started so strong with that cool lift that she does on his back and into their 1 foot turn sequence. The routine just really flows together so well. It just kind of goes by in a heartbeat. They ended up with a time violation, so they lost a point, but they were third in the free dance. So they kind of had what Nisette and Markaloff had at Skate America. Really had a great moment for them with the season's best score and pulled themselves up to the top 5 finish, which is really great for them. And very, very close to what Reed and Amber Levicious were at, honestly, which is interesting. I have all of these great hopes for a lot of these young teams that we're seeing. I think after the Olympic cycle, we're likely to probably not see a lot of retirements again. I mean, I think the top 3 definitely moves on, but I think we're likely to still see Fear and Gibson and Lejeune Laga. And then you've got all of these young American teams and the Czech team and Lemon Kwan and our 6th place finisher here, Lisette and Markaloff, like so many good young teams that I think maybe the next Olympic quad might not be so cut and dry. Like maybe it might be a little bit more competitive, but then it's ice dance. It probably won't be. But when they have performances like this, like I can see it. Like I can see that like anybody could win, kind of, that I think we would all like to see an ice dance that we've gotten little snippets of this year, even if it's been mostly due to big mistakes. In 6th place here was Nisette and Markaloff, and they have had so far just a really great transition into seniors. I think, honestly, even better than what the Miraz Czechs and Lemon Kwan had last season, which, again, has been really surprising to me, but it's been great to see in the rhythm dance. I really tried to make an effort to look at Artem more because I'm always looking at Leah. And because I just noticed I never really watch him, and he's definitely not as exciting to watch as she is. The crowd, again, like they did at Skate America, they loved all the tricks that they did. They even loved him kissing her after the end of the program, which they are husband and wife. There has been some reports come out that perhaps they got married earlier than they has been indicated. That maybe they didn't wait until she was 18. Maybe they got married at 17, which is interesting. I'm going to leave that there. On to the free dance. They, again, very good performance for them. I did not feel like their character step was as powerful as it was at Skate America, and their levels were not as good here either on like their lifts. So they were about 5 points below what they had gotten at Skate America, which was at their personal best there. But I'm still very excited about this team. Love this free dance a lot. And I think they're exactly where they want to be. I think that they're, like I said, they're performing better than I would have expected them and finishing better at these Grand Prix than I would have expected for them to. In seventh place was Laureate and Legac of Canada. And this is the second Grand Prix that they've had a very disappointing finish. This is not where they want to be. They basically, you feel like, have been officially promoted to Canada team number 3 behind Gilles and Poirier and Lajoie and Legas, and they haven't really done anything to solidify that. I mean, Fabry and Air obviously didn't have a great free skate at Skate America, and then they were kind of at the bottom last week at Skate Canada. But you might feel like they have a bit more upside. We're not going to see Natasha and Peter on the Grand Prix this year. They're a really exciting young team in Canada also. And I just feel like Marie Jade and Romain are just losing some momentum when they should be much higher up in the standings than where they have been in both of their Grand Prix this season. In their rhythm dance, I really enjoy watching Romain. Like, he's tall, but he's just so expressive. And because he's so tall, you can't help but notice him. So it helps that he's always making some kind of face and he's just always really into it. They have very, very cool moves. They had great levels on their midline step. Other than Emily and Ian, they were the only team in the rhythm dance to get a level 3 on their midline step. And they were in the top 5 after the rhythm dance. Is where they wanted to be. And in the free dance, they just little things here and there. Like, she struggled on their twizzles, and so that brought them down a bit. I just feel like this program just takes too long to get going. Like, the ending is so good. The last 2 moves they do with the spin on his head and the cool spin that they do in the sit position, the character step, like, all that is really great. But the 2.5 to 3 minutes before then, it's just like a nothing burger. And I just feel like it drags it down. And I don't know what they can do to it if they're going to try to do anything to it. But I think if these 2 finishes at Grand Prix are any indication, the judges are liking what some of these younger teams are doing more than what they are doing. And that's not good. In 8th place here was Natasha Legouge, Arnaud Kaffa of France. In their rhythm dance, they have both have really good showmanship. They have both really increased their presence on the ice. They do a really good job covering the ice. They've improved their speed. I feel like they just have this genuine quality to their dancing. They just look like they're having a good time. They aren't pulling faces. Really enjoyed them in both of their programs. In the free dance, she's very interesting dress. They have a very cool program. Love the expression that they had in their character step. If I had one little nitpick, his 1 foot turns was a little bit weaker. But overall, I'm just so impressed by the improvement that I have seen from this team from the first time that I saw them at the Finland Grand Prix 2 years ago to really see those improvements at Lombardia a month ago. And I feel like they've continued to improve even from there here. And they get a big win over their compatriots in Dupaget and Nabai. France has 3 spots to Europeans this year, and you would think going into the season that it would be the same 3 that we saw last year. Opereva Brazeau, Demogier Lemercier, Dupayage, and Nabai. But frankly, with the way that this team has improved, getting a big win over them here, I think they've made a really good case for themselves in getting that 3rd spot. I mean, why not give them that experience? They've got a great coaching team behind them. They are with Maurizio Mergalio, who also coaches Turkila and Versluis. I enjoy this team a lot here, and I really hope that we continue to see them improve. They will be at Warsaw Cup in a few weeks. And maybe, who knows, maybe we'll see them at Europeans this year. I hope so. In 9th place here was another married team of Ava Pate, and Logan Bai of the US. And this was definitely not the finish that they were looking for, really, in either segment of the competition. They were third at both their two earlier challengers at Lake Placid and at Nice. They finished behind Laureate and Legoc and the Browns, I believe, at Lake Placid, and they finished behind Green and Parsons at Nice. So they're definitely lower in the U.S. pecking order. But what they have always done well, at least the last couple of seasons, is they've been really strong technically. It's been that second mark in GOE that's really sort of dragged them down a little bit behind some of the other teams. It was kind of the case with them here in the rhythm dance. They actually had the best levels of the whole competition in the rhythm dance. They started out with really good twizzles. They had level 3 on their pattern step, one of only 3 teams that got a level 3. They had a 3 and 2 on their midline step. And so my question was, they had the highest base value. How on earth did they end up 8th? Because they were 8th in GOE, they were 8th in PCS, and they were 9th in their choreographic rhythm sequence, which is, of course, just another place that the judges seem to rank competitors. I have been a little encouraged in a couple of the Grand Prix. We've seen a little bit of variance in that, where some teams that necessarily haven't been ranked at the top have gotten higher scores. But in general, like, that's where you kind of see the pecking order. And it was very much the same for them. And I don't see that their choreographic rhythm sequence is any better or worse than some of the other teams. If we're going to make them do these steps and we're not going to give it a level, we're just basing it on what exactly? So I felt really bad for them after the rhythm dance, because I felt like they deserved to be higher than they were. Over a team like, I'm sorry, I love the Mirage Chicks, but they got a base on their pattern step. I mean, do these things mean anything? Now, get to the free dance, totally different story. Ava and Logan had not a great day at the office. They're dancing to Hungarian Rhapsody, which to me have some similar notes to the Politzovian dances that they did last year, which scored very well from them internationally a lot last year. Mark says that this routine has been re-choreographed from their earlier performances. So I did not see Lake Placid this year because they didn't have video for it. Now, a lot of people put up individual videos, but I didn't watch any, and I didn't see Nice either. So this is my first time seeing both of their programs. So I don't know what was re-choreographed, reworked, and if that led to the mistake that they had in their lift. So that was the big issue, is their third element is 2 curve lifts in a row, and they couldn't ever really establish that second lift position. They did end up with a level 3 on both of the lifts, but they got negative GOE. And they also got hammered really bad. I mean, you're going to see them score somewhere in that 107 to 110 range. They got a 97. So it really affected their tech score, which is really their stronger point. So they were really, really bummed. You never want to see less than 100 for sure. So I know that they were kind of like Brody and Somerville were last week. Like, oh, here we are, the third American team, not where we wanted to be for sure. But they'll bounce back, and we'll see them again on the Grand Prix. And then in 10th place here was the third French team, and that was Marie Dupayage and Thomas Nabai. In the rhythm dance, according to Mark, they recently changed their rhythm dance music, which I don't think I saw their original rhythm dance. They were at Dennis 10, and that was the one early challenger that I didn't cover. So I don't know what they were changing it from. I think what Mark said was that they felt the need to make it different. So obviously it was newer for them. I just don't think it's come together yet. I didn't get their outfits or her hair. They're doing 1970s rock. So there's getting to music from Roger Glover and Janis Joplin, which I guess is more on the gothic rock side. I feel like her dress was cut too low on the right. And I'm just like waiting for a wardrobe malfunction. It's just my opinion, but it looked like I made it. I didn't get it. But again, if this was like if this was the look for that time, please let me know, and I will give them all the kudos with the next competition that I cover that they are in. But right now, I am confused. They do have some good moments, like good levels on their midline step, had a really cool rotational lift in there. In their free dance, they have a very cool stationary lift. It's very similar to the Green and Parsons signature stationary lift, maybe with a bit more flair to it. She really struggled with the twizzle, stumbled in the first set, traveled really badly in the second set. Frankly, luckily that they did not collide into each other. So they were 10th in both segments. No, they were very bummed to be the third place French team here. They're always a bit of a quirky team, which I always like. I think it differentiates them from not just the other French teams, but from other teams. But quirky only works when you're clean. Otherwise, it just looks messy. So hopefully that this will be they'll get some good feedback. And since they've recently kind of reworked or got new choreography, then next competition we'll see if we see some improvements in that. On to the Pamchenko Award. Definitely a lot of candidates. I mean, Brody and Somerville getting their first Grand Prix medal. Moraschek's having a very strong free dance. But I'm going to give it to Legauge and Kafa. I just thought that they were such a breath of fresh air. Really enjoyed, like I said, both of their programs and the improvements that they have made. So they get my Pamchenko Award this week. So checking in on the Grand Prix final standings for dance, Lopareva and Brazil with a bronze medal in Skate Canada and a win here qualify for the Grand Prix final with 26 points. So they are the first team in. Gillis and Poirier and Fur and Gibson both have wins, so they have 15 points. Chalk and Bate, Lejeune Lagat, and Guinard and Fabry all have silver medals with 13 points. And I will throw Smart and Deke in there as well with a bronze medal. Brody and Somerville got a bronze here, but they finished 9th last week, so they're definitely not in the running. And so these are basically the teams that are going to be in the running. You can sort of carve out the teams that you expect to be there. Stranger things have happened, but it feels the most cut and dry in ice dance, even coming into the season. You could have picked those 5 teams with either Reed and Ambrulevicius or Lopareva and Brazil likely being the team that would get that other spot. But there is another team that we could potentially throw into the mix. So let's look at NHK Trophy. Coming up next week in Japan, we've got Orihara and Pyörinen of Finland, Demauger and Le Mercier from France, as well as Dupayage and Nabai going back to back. We've got von Rensburg and Stefan from Germany, who were a last-minute replacement at Skate America and then had to withdraw, so they must be healthy now, which is good. We've got 2 teams from Japan, Tanaka and Nishiyama, and Yoshida and Marita. Love their free dance. Love their free dance. I'm so excited to see them here. Rita and Brulevicius also going back-to-back, so they have basically no time to really correct anything from this past week. And then we've got 3 American teams, Carrera and Ponomarenko, Chalk and Bates, and Green and Parsons, which arguably are the 3 best ice dance teams in the U.S. right now. You've got, of course, world champions Chalk and Bates, who are definitely looking to rebound over their fall that they had in the rhythm dance and losing Skate America in the first Grand Prix event of the season. But you've also got Carrera and Ponomarenko, who were silver medalists last season at U.S. Nationals, and then Green and Parsons, who were silver medalists in the previous year at Nationals, going head-to-head. And they're not just going head-to-head here, they're also going head-to-head in their second Grand Prix as well. So it's going to be super interesting because the podium could look like an American sweep. It could look like Rita and Ambrulevicius getting on the podium. It could look like Demauger and Le Mercier getting on the podium. So the team that gets second here is going to put themselves in running also for a spot at Grand Prix final. So it's a big deal whoever can get second. Looking at how they have been scoring and how they have been trending, you look at Christine and Anthony and feel like that's definitely a potential. second place finish for them, if they continue to skate like they have been skating, it feels like a little bit bigger of a leap for Green and Parsons, who we haven't seen skate as well. They're doing Austin Powers for their rhythm dance this season. It's a good style and a good program for them. I feel like both of Christine and Anthony's programs, while well skated, are a little bit more conventional. Demogé and Lemercier, to me, are the sleepers. I wouldn't be surprised if they came out of here with the silver medal with the way that they flew up in the standings last season. Interesting programs again for them this season. I have seen them. And, how quickly can Allison and Salusis rebound from this past week? So could be extremely competitive next week. And I think I've got Ice Dance circled as one of the better matchups as far as the events go coming into NHK. And so, yeah, hopefully it lives up to the bill. And I'll take chaos. I'll always take chaos. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. You can find me on all the socials at Ice Skate Podcast. You can you can subscribe, you can leave comments. Love to interact with you guys. Hope you have a good rest of your week, and let me know what you thought of your performances that you liked in France. Bye, everybody.